This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call the March 8th, 2021 work session to order at 6 p.m. Meeting called to order. Are there any additions or removal of any agenda items tonight? If not, would anyone like to make a motion to accept the agenda tonight?
I will make
I'll
a
make a
motion to accept the agenda as written.
Okay, motion's been made by Councilor Williams. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Councilor Potter seconded. Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Counselor Allen,
Aye.
Counselor Webb,
Aye.
Mayor Hobart,
Aye.
Counselor Potter,
Aye.
Counselor Williams,
Aye.
motion carried.
Thank you, Stephanie. We'll move right into new business. Discussion, downtown trees. Did everyone get a packet of information from the staff? Okay. Josette, in our discussion earlier today, there was also some other maps that you were going to talk about or try to show pictures on the screen about.
Yeah, well, just in case, we sent a link or bigger files. I didn't know, was everyone able to open the gas map and then the water map? Everyone could see those? Or I know JR had, because it was such a big file, maybe somebody had problems seeing them.
I didn't. I couldn't get them.
No, I
Oh,
didn't
you
get
couldn't?
them.
Okay, so let me pull them here. I gotta get them off the server real quick. So I included the gas map, or sorry, the water system map, because in 1999 was when they first put the first round of trees in. I'm gonna share my screen here for a sec. A little bit bigger. So they put in the new water line that runs in the actual planter strip. It's a 12-inch water main. And then they planted the trees at that time and upsized the downtown services to most of them to 2-inch. We've had a few people revert back, but that's a different story. So in these plans, I was going to get to the pages that I thought were useful. A lot of it's just samples and stuff that might not be totally useful. Let's keep going. Bottom.
You could go to F4 or E4, Josette.
It's hard. I can't see the whole page on my screen since I have it blown up. So thanks, JR. That helps.
I couldn't surf through that fast. I had to go creepy slow. I finally was able to get some of it to open.
Yeah, it's a huge. Well, they're not even. They're like 4 feet sized pages, so we couldn't print them out or even do a good job at shrinking them because a lot of the detail disappears.
I'm not sure if it's page 26 or what, but it should be F4 or E4 should show downtown on Bridge.
Let's see. You thought it was 26?
I think so from memory. I don't know if I wrote it.
Here we go. There you go. So, it's taking a minute. There we go. Okay. So this is showing Weed Avenue right here on the left.
Can you blow it up anymore?
Yeah, sure. And take a minute for it to do it on your screen.
You said it was a 1 foot pipe. What's the composition? Is it plastic or what's it made out of?
No, I think it's iron. Fran, I can't get that for sure because then I'll have to switch pages, and since I'm showing
Okay.
everyone. So in this map, you'll see Weed Avenue, you see the sidewalk, and then you see all the numbered items. Those are all detailed. I'll clear over. Down here in the legend, you'll see it here in a second. Takes a minute. Just what the different accesses were. So those are all the things that are in that planter strip or in place, whether it's a light pole, a tree cut out. So the number 4s were where they cut out for trees back then. 2s are fire hydrants. Number 1s are wheelchair access or approaches to the sidewalk. Catch basins, mailboxes, gas meter, water meter, signs, flagpole base, power pole, sewer clean out, or I don't know where there's a fuel tank receptacle, but anyway.
That got deleted on the plans.
You got what?
The fuel tank was pulled out of the work that was done.
Okay. So that's kind of showing you what's in there. Then there's another page that shows the profile, which I think is more akin to our discussion. Let me get there. I gotta shrink it real quick so I can scroll through it a little faster. Does anyone have any questions about what this shows?
No, but I could answer what kind of pipe is in the ground. It's the plastic
Go for it.
HDPE.
Oh, thank you.
That's probably about an inch thick.
It's tough stuff. It's tougher than cast iron.
Is the electric line still in there? Is there still power in there?
So in going back to Northwest Natural, so JR had asked me to pull locate, and when I contacted Northwest Natural, they asked me not to until we know where we're actually digging, and they sent me a link to access all the gas maps, and that was in your packet. It's a 1-pager. It shows it's just outside the curb line. It's a 4-inch main, and then it shows where it crosses, the laterals cross to the different businesses. Let me get to what I wanted to show you with the, okay, so let me blow this one up.
I guess I missed that.
Steph, do you know what page it is?
What page what is?
The gas map, what page of their packet it would have been?
It's actually printed in their packet on the very back.
It's on the very back.
Oh, okay.
It's on the very back.
It is.
I wanted to show you, this is the, I'm going to come up here.
Josette,
Yeah?
to clarify, I think Grant asked about electric. Was that
Yes.
true?
Oh,
Is there still electric
There's
power in that?
there is electric that basically garlands up into each light pole.
Okay, cool.
So it kind of goes like a swooping garland from light pole
Right.
to light pole. So this is what I wanted to show you. This was their tree well diagram. I forget which counselor asked for like a side view of the tree well, and this is the
Right.
only thing we can find as staff that diagrams what they did or what their plan was at that point. And that's on page, I don't know, 31 of the water plan. So it shows they put a bio barrier, which must have been like a fabric type. And then they just backfilled it, and then they had a standpipe, which I want to say it was for watering.
Yes.
But I never remember seeing one of those when they ground the stump. I don't know if I'm not sure they followed through with everything on here because none of us were here at the time. Maybe
I
they
think,
did.
I think the plan calls for 2 of those PVC pipes filled full of gravel capped off just below the surface there. But they must have a
Yeah.
way for the water to run down through the gravel somehow. That was the plan anyway.
Right, and that's the thing is, no one's still here that was in any position to be a part of this at the time, so. So then
So
we
that,
also included, oh, go ahead, JR.
I don't see a concrete vault or anything like that. I see just a tree well that was designed and made, and all the power and all the utilities were designed with this at the same time.
That's true. We did find in digging some of them up about a 4-inch piece of almost what looked like thin sheet metal, which maybe was to keep the edge of the curb and some sort of top shallow barrier. But that's the only metal or any type of vaulting or any hard stuff we found in there. So we also included minutes from the discussions back and forth and the different decision making that the past councils went into in their decision to remove the trees. I'm trying to think. Let me unshare my screen so I can look at it. And then I did find that the different planters, I couldn't find any, most of these ones were for like plazas. So like Bridgeport has a big open area in the middle of all the shops, and they put a big tree in a container in a plaza. I'm sure there's other smaller ones, but these were the ones I found that were specific to planting a whole tree in it. And there was lots of different diameters and sizes you could do. And then we did connect you guys with 2 links from that Councilor Allen asked us to provide. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at the different articles?
Yep.
And then, and then I also gave you the pages from the Portland street tree planting list. That's what we used trying to find trees that would fit in the 3x3 by 3, ultimately that sizing of area. And at the 3rd page of that, you see the ones that are kind of for that smaller, for their saying, or for that smaller height and width space type thing. And then go to the printed gas map. And then I did do a downtown map just to show you the 4 blocks we're talking about. And then the gas map. I don't know. You don't need anything else from staff. You guys could just hold the discussion and we'll take notes. And
I think we could proceed that way, Josette.
okay.
JR.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions, just to get a little more background information. When this all started, I understand there was a couple of people noticed to fix the concrete. Is that correct?
Yes.
And one of them, was the concrete fixed?
So one of them, like, painted theirs because it was a trip hazard. And I don't believe they fixed it. I think they just made notice that, hey, this is different heights, and painted it. And one did a shaving of their edge.
Okay, so is that pretty much what kicked off the whole deal with the trees?
Well, no, one of the things that kind of kicked it off was a number of them had died. And I was gonna, let me just hold up a map so that you can see it. So this was a map I didn't send to you guys, but do you see the red trees? Those trees were already dead when we started making these decisions. So those had been removed. So they were a spot where a tree was, but at the time of the discussions, they were just bark dust. Just a square with bark dust. So of the remaining trees that were left is what was the discussion was based on. Some of them were just out of stress. Some of them had been like hit with something and damaged. And some of them were actually trimmed to nothing by the adjacent property owner. Like made a stick, and that was it. So that's kind of what all of those things together led council to start talking.
Okay. So when I read through these, I know I wasn't there, but as I read through the minutes provided, it kind of sticks out like the decision to buy the bricks was ahead of the decision to get rid of the trees. Am I reading that wrong?
No, we did buy the bricks were on sale, and we did buy them because we knew at minimum we were probably going to fill the dead spots.
But you had enough to go ahead and do them all.
Well, when we ultimately did it, what we ended up doing was going backwards and laying in a new pattern. So the current bricks with the new bricks spread the distance. But it wasn't a known that it would. We thought we may have to buy more at that point.
Okay. Well, I was kind of led to believe that the infrastructure as underground was the big issue. And then when I looked at these plans finally this afternoon, I was able to access them. It kind of surprised me that, all this was engineered by KCM Engineering in 1998, probably as part of a big grant for the water upgrade to the 12-inch main. So,
Yeah, I think they did.
so all those tree wells were engineered along with all of the infrastructure and all the power around them to daisy chain around them, including water and everything, plus the light poles and everything all in one swoop. So I don't want anybody to be misconstrued and think this was haphazardly thought through. For the placement of the tree wells, it might not have been the best placement for some of the people if you ask them as far as their signs or something, but it was all engineered together is what I get from those plans. So, and then also I was kind of, I think somebody told me once the gas line was underneath the bricks, which turns out not to be the case. It's five, yeah,
That was
it's
me.
out into the road.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's good to look at the actual plans, I guess, and go from there. So, um, and some of the business owners obviously didn't like the mess or whatnot, and tripping hazards or whatever. I do find it a little ironic that the business owner that pushed the hardest is the one that hasn't fixed his lip on the sidewalk he was so concerned about with the 1-inch lip that the tree wheels were designed with. So if he has been cited, there is a up to $100 a day for the last 4 years fine after 30 days. That I don't think we're going to go collect, but that would probably be close to 80 or 100 grand. But so there is rules on the books about taking care of that obviously weren't followed up on. I've offered my grinder from work to take care of that hopefully in the next few weeks. So pretty simple fix if you just bevel a little bit. But anyway, I found those plans. There's one picture you haven't shown yet that shows actually that water line and everything. It runs right along the south edge. It's right on the south side of the bricks. So if you start from the street and head south on the south side, They cut the sidewalk and left 3'6" of brick. So right on the edge of that's where that water line runs, according to the plans. So that water line is not directly under the trees either.
So tell me what page that is, JR? On your, do you have
Well,
it there?
I just
I'm trying to
went
find it so I can put it up.
I'm not sure what page. It's right around close to where you were at before, maybe one or two above that. But it shows
Okay.
all the lines. It's kind of a mess until you zoom in on it because it shows all the lines of the old water main, which was on the north side of the street, which is an 8-inch main. And what this did is it bypassed that and they abandoned the 8-inch main over by Lou's. And then they ran that 12-inch down past or to Adams. And then they dug a pit. You can see the hole where they bored underneath towards the swimming hole and then tied in again. But basically they turned an 8-inch main into a 12-inch and went with that new plastic stuff that's welded together, kind of fused together stuff. Of course, you have some crossings for sewer. The sewer's out in the middle of the street too. But there is some, you do have sewer that come from the buildings out across.
JR,
Go ahead, Stephanie.
just to get clarification, JR, did you say that the water main runs on the edge of the curb?
No,
On the
it
edge
runs
of
on the south edge of the brick,
Thank you.
which is where the concrete starts, where the sidewalk actually starts.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that I got that right. Thank you.
According to the pictures anyway, in the plans.
I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, it's not easy to navigate, especially when your computer won't load it very fast. If you look in sector E, what did I say it was? I don't know if you can click and go to it. F4 and E4 basically in that sector should show it.
Okay.
I'm not sure what page that's actually on. 26 to 32, somewhere in there probably.
Okay. Let me scroll up here because I was past that.
I can't really show you from mine, but
Well, I showed catch basin detail on it. Utility vault within pavers.
basically it'll look like C drawing C07 kind of.
What's the bottom drawing number?
I can't see it on my phone, but it shows all the lines and stuff in it. And this is part of it. There's like 2 pages each end of town.
Drawing C107.
Well, it says
Okay.
C107 probably for something else, but I knew this was going to be kind of hard to do this Zoom wise, but so
Yeah.
Right.
please be patient with us.
Yes, C107 doesn't, that's, oh, hold on, I'm going back.
On page 48 of the packet, it's page C113 that you were looking at.
Need of a packet?
It's not printed, Dale.
No, you have to get it.
Of the PDF, I should say, sorry.
Yes, thank you.
So it'll look like this right by City Hall. And there's a dark line.
Yeah.
It looked like it's going
got
right
it.
through the middle of the sidewalk.
I got it.
Yep.
And I haven't had time to dig around to look for elevations. They're not on this page anyway, but I imagine they're 3.5 feet or so, whatever they needed to match up somewhere else.
Right.
I don't know if you can zoom in on that. But
More?
Yeah, if you center it a little bit for people, if you're not used to looking at these, it looks like a bunch of a scribbled up mess. But basically, you'll see where it says 12W along that black line down here toward the bottom center of your screen. That's your 12-inch water main. And you can see the trees on there on the outer edge of the trees where they'll be when they grow up. I can't remember if they replaced all of the sidewalk back then or what. It seemed like they might have.
So it looks like the 12-inch main is north of the trees then, JR, right? Right in the middle of the sidewalk?
Well, it'd be south of them on the south side of the trees. Because
So
Main
in
Street,
On the
here,
south side, you're right,
Main Street runs east and west.
right.
So where that cloud is on your left, that's City Hall, right there on the corner. So that'd be Weed. The next one over to your right is Madison. So you're looking right in front of Mike Peel's place there, and then the realty and stuff there, But anyway, they ran that new 12-inch plastic main way down underneath there somewhere, and it looks like they tried to hug it outside the tree wells, obviously, unless it's super
I
deep.
know one of these pages. Let me get out of screen sharing real quick so I can go fast. I know one of them I thought had that cross section of the pipe in there. Hold on a second.
It doesn't give a depth, JR?
I haven't found one yet. I didn't have time to pour through the whole plans because it took forever to load to even try to hunt for what I could find. So
Yeah.
there is elevations on some things. Some things are as needed on the plan. So, um, you could go over to one of those gas or valves or something and measure down over there on Adams if you really wanted to find out the depth at that location. But I imagine it's down there about 3 feet. They probably didn't want to dig too deep and put shoring if they didn't have to.
Right.
Be my guess anyway.
Well, I hope it's a minimum of 3 feet.
And it could be underneath those tree wells, if they didn't pull up all the sidewalk. I can't remember. Can you remember, Counselor Webb?
Just looking at the sidewalks, it doesn't appear the sidewalks are all uniform, so I would say they aren't under the sidewalk.
Yeah, so it could just be real deep down below and hug it over to the far side and went with it.
Yeah.
But they're not too worried about that. They're probably not too worried about a 12-inch HDPT pipe being hurt by some tree roots. What I read online about that stuff, it's tougher than cast iron and type pipe.
A lot better
So
than clay or wood.
since I found this and Grant asked about it, I'm going to share it real quick.
Okay,
So, Grant, this is a picture of what the electrical does there.
On E131 should be electrical, page 32. Yeah.
Yeah. So it shows you that it kind of garlands and bounces up and up to each thing. You see that?
Yeah.
I think, does it go to each light or tree well too, Josette? Wasn't there power in there?
There was power, not every one, but like every third one or something. You see the WPGFI on this map, and then you see the round circle is the light post, and the WPGFI is the little, it had like a little, basically like a curb stop junction box where there's a plug in there, a metal box, kind of like an industrial with the closer caps on it.
Yeah, it's too small for
when the lights came out, those got cut off and put in the actual junction box under the pavers. Like the electrician stubbed those off and put them underground. So we didn't like pull the electrical or anything.
Right.
Dale, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to make one point when we were talking about KCM or whoever engineered this, but they engineered it to what they had. Uh, our planter strip in our downtown is far from being standard width. Um, looking online, it was one thing that really stuck out to me. I was looking at Seattle's design standards, and they had a very specific standard: 3.5 feet from the edge of the curb to the center line of a tree. And I was like, wow, I wonder why that's so specific till I opened the car door up. Car doors are at close to 3 foot excursion towards your sidewalk when you open the door fully. So that's why they have a design standard of being setting their trees back from the curb. That was one of the issues people had was between trees, garbage cans, bicycle racks. We got barrels along there now, um, sandwich boards. We're cluttering up that planter strip so much that then it's hard to get in and out of cars. And I actually spent some time there yesterday. I took some pictures and I started observing something there where those barrels there in front of Mr. Roach's establishment. People are parking more out into the road. They're probably illegally parked, uh, so they can get out of their vehicle because those barrels crowd right up to the curb line. Um, so that's one of the issues with a tree in the mid block. Now trees could go, there is a place for a tree in the yellow painted and maybe a little past because of the way the vehicles are designed. Your vehicle basically, you got 4 feet on each end that doesn't have, typically doesn't have passenger doors. So the yellow curb from the corner back, the painted stripe, so we don't park and obscure vision, and maybe about another 4 foot is probably fair game for a tree. Um, but if we plant them in mid block, and I seen the other thing I seen, and we all realize we have a parking issue downtown. We've had all before, and the three of us have been through this parking ordinance and round and round. People are parking to those obstructions that they're seeing, and they're leaving gaps. So we're losing parking spots because they don't want to park there because they can't open their door to get out. So that's one of the issues. I think that's previous councils, they had certain hurdles of what they were trying to overcome. One was this obstruction to vehicles because we don't have a proper width planter strip. Seattle standard was actually a full 7 foot, minimum of 5. We don't have it. I mean, we just physically, there's no way we can gain it. The obstruction of business signs, we got to be careful if we plant too close to corners that we don't obstruct the view of traffic. That's why the painted yellow lines are for people don't park there. But so, we have to have the right tree that's tall enough that just a trunk and then the canopy above. But then, of course, we got to include log truck drivers into that. And they sit a little higher than everybody else. The tree wells were an issue because I think Mr. Smith mentioned that people were stepping in those. It's a turn your ankle situation. It's muddy. And I've noticed they're kind of dog poo collectors down there right now. So, and in fact, I had talked to another business owner today down there, and And they pointed that issue out, and they keep tracking dog poo into their nice carpet in their business because it's all around on our sidewalks. So it's a separate issue, but so there's some issues there that previous councils have run up against and trying to solve. You can put those nice cast iron covers over them, but boy, they're spendy. $1,200-1,300 for a 36 incher. If we put a vault in the ground to solve the sidewalk issues, those are probably going to run us $800 to $1,000. And then the other thing, when you look in Lorna maybe can talk to, is a lot of the trees don't like to be that contained, in basically a container. Especially a tree that we want probably to get tall enough and then to have a canopy. Some of the stuff I read, the arborists were really pretty negative about putting them in a container. So it's a tough issue to solve. That's it for now.
Thank you, Dale. Josette, I have a couple questions. In 2016, when the previous the council at the time went with a questionnaire, what was I know a couple business owners or property owners were against, wanted the trees removed, but I didn't hear from any other participation. What was the general consensus from the other business owners, and if they even participated in the questionnaire?
So it was kind of a flawed survey. I can pull it up here. Let me find it. Part of the reason it was flawed is because we asked tenants and owners. Some people were just a tenant in a building, which we really shouldn't have been asking them, because ultimately the onerous wouldn't have been on them to fix the sidewalk. So it was a little bit flawed. But let me find the sorry, I opened up stuff and covered you guys up. Okay, so it was pretty, let me see. So the things we asked was, if you rent or own, 58% was the ownership, 41% of the people surveyed were tenants. So we should have redone it, but we didn't. So 45% of the total number would be okay with trees being replaced if it was appropriate size and species, but that's not really owners. So if we were going to go down this road again, I think it would behoove the council to survey the owners responsible if something happens, and not tenants, but almost half would have liked it at that point. 25% wanted the trees removed and replaced with just a planter, and 20% would like the trees removed and not replaced. So 33%, and this is of the total number, owners and tenants, thought there was little to no issue. 25% thought there was somewhat of an issue, and 41% said there was often or to the extreme an issue with it. We asked, like, these are the 4 options, what would you like, and have they caused trouble to your business? So this survey would work again if you surveyed the owners to really get you a better picture of what some of those people that were tenants have, now the businesses and even some of the ownerships have switched hands now. So it might come out differently now. I don't know. But this was just what we had at the time.
Thank you. Councilor Williams.
I had the opportunity to talk to several business owners there on Main Street, and most of the people I talked to were not very interested in trees for quite a few reasons. The dog poop came up big. You know, people get out of the car after they've been traveling. Their dog gets out. First thing they're going to do, pee on a tree or poop or something. So that was not very popular. I agree about the trees hitting the doors. I think that could be remedied, though. You know, I mean, you got the yellow curb, and then we know what a standard size of a car is. So if you if you were to put lines, you could get you could have the bumpers and the doors and everything so that the bumper would be by the tree and not the door. But I don't. That it's a narrow walkway as well. And the only way that you could get the tree uh, a safe distance, you know, from a car would be to put it right on the southern edge. If you put the tree in the middle, it's like 18 inches or so, so it would be really tight. Um, Another observation was people don't come to cities to see trees. I disagree with that point because I think trees are beautiful, but I think our main corridor is pretty tight. I did talk to the lady at the pet store. Now she's got a completely different situation because she's got the planter space, she's got a sidewalk, and then there's the distance to the building, which is not standard protocol. What was it, 15 feet? Is that the rule? You got to be within 15 feet. Well, I think she probably is, but that would be one place where trees could go and not be a problem. But you get down there in that narrow sidewalk and the tall buildings, you'd have to, in order to keep the trees from becoming weak, you'd have to like shave one side, they'd be bulbous on the other and really wide, you know, the length of the sidewalk, but then they'd have to be trimmed so they didn't hit the building because that would do damage to the buildings. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, well, thank you, Councilor Williams. There certainly are. Um, and when I read through the packet in general, you know, there was, you know, trees talked about the correct species, and I've done a little research with those trees over at West Oregon Electric. They were planted in 2011. So they're 10 years old. And I'm talking about the trees on the Highway 47 side and the Weed Avenue side. They are a smaller species of maple, I believe. They're, like I said, they're 10 years old and they have they're only about 15 to 20 feet tall right now. There's been little trimming done on them. I noticed on the stem on most of them, they have suckers on them. But anyway, those trees are beautiful in the spring and especially in the fall. They're a beautiful red maple leaf tree and very little maintenance. I think I did a little research when you plant those, they require about 15 gallons a week. So the tree bags would be probably the way to go, like we planted the trees in Spencer Park to get established. But there's very little space between the sidewalk and the curb, and they're in tree grates. They're not over 2 feet wide, I don't think. They might be 3 feet tree grates. But to me, that's the correct tree for that application there. And so of course, Lauren has told us that those other trees were a broadleaf maple tree, and they were actually the wrong species tree planted. Were those trees planted in 1999, Josette?
Yes.
Okay.
These look like they must be some sort of, I pulled up a picture so you guys can, they look like they're, and Lauren is gonna, but they look more like a maple that's a column. There's certain ones that kind of grow in a column shape. These ones don't have the, so I don't know what type it is, but you can see here, they're not, they're just in bark dust. But they're growing very kind of like a column.
Yeah.
For the other ones, they just
Yeah.
had too much lateral growth out. And I think that was the problem. These trees are just about high enough so that you can see the 20, we had to actually move the 20-mile-an-hour sign in front of them because for like 5 years, you couldn't see that it said 20 miles an hour. And we had a number of residents that didn't like people's speed right there. And they made us ask us to move the speed posting sign outside of the trees until the foliage gets higher than that sign. But yeah, so there's, and then I believe, I was going to turn here, I think, I want to say that sorry, you're traveling on Google Maps. So then the health center, let me get over here. They did a small, like a crepe myrtle, which was one of the trees we proposed to the council. It stays relatively small. The other one was a Covelda Sprite that kind of stays pretty small, but you can see that the health center did. Theirs looks a little wider. I'd have to go measure it to see if it's apples to apples. But they're just in working by the Rose Avenue site. See how theirs just looks wider, their planter strip, and their sidewalk looks narrower. Now you can see it a little better. This way. I believe they're a little wider than what West Oregon had at the highway to work with. So, but those are two places where they did put in street trees in that park planter area. And then I can turn and look
Yeah.
this way.
They're the ones I'm talking about, Josette. Yeah. Going back towards
Yeah.
Highway 47. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really beautiful in the fall when they change color. Yeah. And those are
So
about 10 years old. So, JR.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for making some valid points today. I'm glad some of us have, I also have walked down, talked to some business owners. I probably got about a 65 to 70% favorable rate for something to go back. At the time of this discussion, if you read through these minutes, there was a couple of counselors fighting pretty hard to put money in the budget to replace these trees. And they must have got outvoted or something because they talked about replacing them for quite a while, then just didn't happen. Councilor Webb made some good points, but if we're going to worry about exact space, then Western Autos Post, can we go on the curb for 35 years? People still park there. As far as room for opening the doors, I seldom park in a parking space where I have 2 or 2.5 feet to open my door to get out. So I think it is possible. You might want to choose to replace them, or like Grant Williams said, maybe we need time to paint some lines. As far as the garbage cans, I hope everybody goes and takes a good look because they're rotten and look like hell. I've got some pictures. I mean, once you really go look at them, and the bricks and the moss and the weeds and the dog poop, it's not a good look down there. I think we all know that. I think that's why we're here tonight, to come up with something to improve it. I don't think we're going to somehow get our tenants to take care of it the way we would want to present our city to everybody. So I don't know if we're going to have to help them out somehow with some weed killer and some pressure washing once in a while, or there's notices on the rules. They're supposed to take care. Obviously that's not happening. The dog poo, the same thing. There's leash rules and pick up the poop rules, and people aren't going to follow the rules. So I don't know if we punish everybody because some people don't follow rules, but the setbacks on the corners, there's rules on that too. You're not supposed to plant a tree or put something that blocks the intersection. That's why they probably paint the yellow back away. So I think that can be mitigated as well. The sidewalk, I was told by ex-Councilor McNair, was 8 feet wide. For quite a while, I believed that until I went down and measured it. On the south side, we have 10 foot of sidewalk from building to curb. So you have a 3.5 foot brick planter with a 6-inch curb is 4 foot, and then another 6 foot of concrete for looked like the majority of the south side. I didn't measure the north side. So anyway, just reading through the meeting minutes, it sounds like everybody kind of wanted to do something. I don't know if there just wasn't enough marching into City Hall complaints that said there was mixed reviews, but I don't know how many reviews there were. So, but maybe a little plant, maybe shrubs are the answer. We can put them a little further from the curb, but then, you get further from the curb, you're further toward the sidewalk. So we used to have 10 feet of sidewalk, and we let somebody give us a bunch of money, give us a present. And sometimes with presents, there's mixed consequences. And so I kind of feel like we took the money, took the present, and then gave back part of it and chopped them down and left it the way, I don't know. Mr. Smith stated that to me that those bricks were supposed to be pulled back up after a year and reset. That's why he's complaining that they're low in places. So he thinks the city is kind of negligent on part of that. Some of them low spots that aren't have anything to do with the trees, but so.
Go ahead, Josette.
So JR, there are certain areas that are slated to get reset this summer, this dry season, where we know just, so there was where they ground the stumps, the ground stayed pretty compacted above that, but as water seeped in and it settled, there's weird wonky, those spots are all slated to get pulled up, screeded, you screed the sand to a certain level and put them back. The garbage cans are also designed, and we're just waiting. We don't have funding to buy those. The materials. So kind of a flip thing. Waste Management quit paying, or does not require their employees to lift garbage cans over their heads anymore. Everything had to go to the arm mechanism. So they gave us a rolling cart to fashion a new garbage can around. It's part of the franchise agreement in the downtown zone that Waste Management will pick up those downtown cans. But pretty much every quarter we get a, hey, when are you getting these new garbage cans? Our guys are tired of lifting up the round ones. So we do have that all designed, and that's what Rachel Organ is going for a grant to get the money, because we don't have it in streets to build 22 new garbage cans. Even just materials, we don't have it. So the plan is that we would get brand new garbage cans. That's in the works already. It's all designed and everything.
Councilor Webb.
Just a little background.
So that kind of brings up another issue, which is our priority list that we once a year go through and prioritize our projects. And I believe the garbage cans were fairly high on that list. We got to recognize we can't fund every project that's on that list. We don't even know if we have funding till we get into the budget review process to, what's going to be excess money. Because that's really the only thing we have to play with is excess money. And I think, kind of does a disservice to ourselves. Why did we spend any time on a priority list if we don't follow it to some degree? Um, the part with the look downtown, I agree with the assessment everybody else is seeing. It's kind of appalling at times to look at it. It's probably the worst time of the year right now to look at it, um, but we got to realize if we want that to a different standard, we're going to have to pay for it. And if we keep adding amenities into our downtown, it's more upkeep. We got to keep, and sooner or later, um, somebody's going to put their hand up and say we need another public works person, or we're going to bring in, temporary workers in the summer, and we're going to start eating some money that way. I mean, labor, putting some of this stuff in probably be cheaper in the long run than what the labor is going to eat us up, trying to keep everything maintained. So that's another caution that I would have is, um, I'd kind of like to see those garbage cans get knocked off the list first before we move forward putting anything else in. Because you said the first trees went in in '99, but I was understanding that there was
I,
two plantings.
well, that's the thing. I wasn't here, so there may have been trees ahead of that that I don't know about.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's my recollection is there was trees, they were taken out, put back in once already, and then this last time, uh, once they got so big, people demanded them come out. The other thing I want to mention on the smaller trees, I do remember seeing this. Uh, when you put a small tree in there, especially in front of the taverns, they didn't fare very well because boys come out of there a little bit liquored up and they snapped them right off. And I seen several of those back in my day. So uh, yeah, if you go too small, I think you get vandalized. It, and if you get too big, then you have problems. So it's kind of a catch-22. Maybe you can put something alongside them to support them.
JR.
Um, the trees, all been saying they put the wrong trees in. I don't think they can blame anybody from the city because that's what the engineers come up with. It's on those plans that you guys didn't get to see unless you dig through there. Those trees are specified out by name and by species. So that was the designer.
Can you tell what that species was?
I had a name of it, Acer. It's an Acer maple or something like that. I don't. I'm not sure if it's on that picture right there. It's on those plans. I'm sure Josette could pull it up somewhere. Probably down there at the details at the bottom where it shows pictures of all the different things. I saw it somewhere where it actually specced out the tree on the plan. So
Well, all maples would be an Acer. That's what they start with. But let me pull it up here and see if I can.
yeah, it said Ace or something. It's stuff I can't pronounce. I'm just an old country boy, but
I'm looking while you guys are talking.
Acer rubrum Armstrong red maple in 2-inch caliber.
Where'd
That's
Lauren
an
go?
Armstrong. That'll get pretty big from what, just looking at trees for like Spencer.
right.
So they're supposed to get 40 to 60 feet with a 15 to 25 foot spread. An Armstrong red maple.
They were going big.
Yeah, they did.
So when you look at trees and some of them are only 15 foot wide and 20 foot high max, and you can trim them if you want even more. I mean, there's other trees, apple trees, non-producing. There's all kinds of smaller trees, but or shrubs or evergreens or a million different choices. It's just kind of funny that somebody designed this probably without ever coming to our town in Portland, because it was a Portland firm. Some architect probably threw those in there, and this is what you want. And might not even come and look at our situation. I'm just speculating, of course, but I don't know why you'd plant a huge tall tree underneath the phone lines.
Yeah.
There's also an evergreen spruce that gets about, on the average, about 15 feet tall, and it only gets about 2 to 3 feet wide at the most. And it's pretty well straight up, and it's a really pretty green conifer type spruce also. And you wouldn't have to deal with falling leaves and things like that. So there are trees that would be conducive to the downtown area. Josette.
So I'm wondering if council's really wanting to look at a replacement, probably to do our due diligence, we should have council approve some sort of survey that goes out to the property owners that outlines what their responsibility would be, and then have them surveyed. Would they like this kind? Would they like a evergreen? Would they like it? Whatever question do you guys want to pose to them, to maybe then that way, if you do choose to go with it, then we've kind of approached the owners and they've had their option to put in their 2 cents. What do you guys think about something like that? Because my concern is if we don't do some sort of notification or a survey or something, my concern is we get into a fight the minute we start digging, and it's one of the people that we haven't done whatever steps we're supposed to do, and they're mad about it or something.
Councilor Williams.
Josette, I agree 100% that if we talk to everybody through a survey and even give them the opportunity to make comments. I mean, we can have some questions, with three choices or whatever. But I think we also ought to include a comment area. I know, for instance, like the Christmas people that like to decorate. If we had an evergreen tree that could be decorated, I mean, evergreens are the same all year long. You get a maple, it's pretty part of the year and whatever, but you can't decorate a maple very well. But you can decorate an evergreen for Christmas. So if we get input from everybody, and not just necessarily store owners, but for like people who serve on the committees that beautify the city, put up banners and that kind of stuff. If we get their input too, I think we'll get some very helpful information.
Stephanie.
So Grant, on that comment about letting people who don't actually own property along the sidewalks have input on whether or not the trees get planted, my concern is that they're not the ones who are actually financially responsible for any damage that those trees do. So
right.
If it pops the sidewalk, or if someone trips over a root or whatever and falls, it's the property owner's insurance that has to cover it, not people who go and decorate the trees.
Right, I understand that. Thank you.
Councilor Allen.
Well, I'd like to make a couple of points. In the meeting minutes back in June or so of 2016, there was mentioned by a couple of counselors of input from the citizens, and I tend to agree. What did the citizens think? Because that grant wasn't just for the few property owners that change hands every few years. That grant was for the town, which includes every citizen in it, as far as I'm concerned, not just business owners that change hands every once in a while, or some do, some don't, obviously. Um, so we're talking a total damage of one little area about 2 feet wide by about 2.5 feet long that was fixed like crap, and the other area that was ignored. So that's the total of the damage that caused, the getting rid of the trees, which put it forward. The trees were too big, obviously. They planted the wrong trees. But we're kind of talking like there's just tons of damage, and maybe there would have been if we kept on letting them get bigger and bigger and bigger. But I think a smaller tree that's meant to stay small isn't going to cause substantial damage, in my opinion, especially if the roots are the type that go down and don't spread out. And then also in the meeting minutes, I'm not going to say which counselor, but you guys know, you can read it for yourself. If the businesses really want the trees to be replaced, then they can pay for them. So there was a thought there that if they want to replace them, they can just do it themselves. But it also says here, 66% of the businesses owners want something in the tree's place. So that's what we're trying to come up with, is the something, I guess. And also probably a maintenance plan downtown, because it doesn't seem to be happening by those business owners that we're going to take their opinions by, when they can't seem to even clean the junk off in front of their businesses, the dog poop and the moss and the grass and the weeds. And so, and I think some of them think it's the city's responsibility, which in some cities they do that stuff. So maybe it's a matter of educating some of them on their responsibilities clear out to the curb.
Josette,
So a few things I want to touch on. In the budget, there is a street beautification line item that has $3,000, I think, in it. I'd have to look. But that kind of came out of what Counselor Tierney wanted something, but she realized there were enough owners of property. So if you take the block of Cedar Side, Ray's got that apartment building, the courtyard, and then the Cedar Side. He hated the trees. He's the one that trimmed them and wanted nothing. So a couple thoughts that come to mind is, what if you take and you move forward in that kind of using that beautification line item, or even think about putting money in the budget where it's like someone wants to improve the facade of their building, kind of like you were saying, JR, with, I think it was Beaverton, and do some sort of grant to the local business. I don't know, however you could fashion it, something that would help them do kind of a upkeep on the front, because there are some that are looking a little dilapidated. My other question is, if you put something back in there, what if someone fights the city on that? What's going to be the response? How do you, I don't even know how you're basically saying to the person, you don't want it, but we want it. Are we really going to put it there if he's just going to cut it down again, or ring it, or damage it beyond repair? I mean, I don't know what we do. And then how does it look aesthetically if we can't get the buy-in from different owners to have it be kind of symmetrical or somewhat of a pattern as you go down the street? I don't know what that's going to look like, because we know Dana would love trees. He really wanted trees. He would have put trees back in there had we said go for it. Do we then do a hit and miss?
But those are a lot closer than.
I see the barrel.
Yeah, that's what Mr. Webb was talking about. It's closer than the trees because the barrel's so big.
Yeah. But I mean, that's Dana. He wants something out in front of his business. So he put those in place of his 3 trees that we took out.
And these
Oh,
are the
I've
trash.
seen them, JR.
Yeah.
I know. That's
We
part of the
haven't,
problem. We don't have
we've talked about
money
that
to.
for 2 years now, that since I've been on council, we've been talking about out of compliance. It's never made our list of top priorities. We do have rollover money in the general budget. If it was really something that was mandated, you think we would just say, we got to get this done. Here's our options. Go ahead and transfer out and make it happen. I mean, we're out of compliance. We're rolling plastic garbage cans out there. So I would be all for replacing those, no matter how we have to do it at this time, since we seem to have money coming in. It might not be in street funds, it might not be in parks, might not be in the cemetery, but I think it needs to be done. And maybe bring a proposal to council and we'll get moving on it, because they're really literally just falling apart. The whole side of one's leaned up against it over there in front of the All In. And I'm not trying, it's nobody's fault. We just have had other things on our plate.
So there's 14 that remain. There used to be 22. Every time one gets to a point where it can no longer hold a garbage can, we have to pull it, because and then it starts to be kind of like a wasteland of no receptacle, because
Well, that's
I'm
another
with you.
question.
I'd love to
That's
have the
another
money to just build brand new.
That's another question. Do we really need 22? How many do we really need? You know, I think we're just encouraging people to throw their garbage away on the city dime. I don't know. At some point, you
Well,
have
and
to have garbage cans.
that was taken into the design. Is the opening on those is pretty big, which the new design is a smaller opening for more like, you couldn't shove a white kitchen bag in it like you could now in any of those ones. If you manhandled it enough, you could shove a whole white kitchen garbage bag in there. So there was, we've been thinking about all those issues.
So we raised the franchise fees 30,000 to accommodate waste management on their mandate. That would be a pretty simple way of doing it. Of course,
I don't think it's up for renewal yet.
That would just spread it out to the rest of us, but that's the way it goes, I guess.
Councilor Williams.
I would agree that we need to get the garbage problem solved. And I like Josette's idea of allowing people to make up their own mind. I mean, some of the storefronts are rectangular and tall. Some of them are pointed. I don't think we have to force everybody on that street to have a tree if they don't want one. If you have a roof that's shaped like this, you can put a tree on either side of that, and that allows the tree to grow a little more. If you've got a building like across from the learning center that's got the big, tall, rectangular appearance, that's not conducive to most trees. So I think if we let people make up their own mind, they want one, they can have one. If they don't have to.
I think we could gather a lot of that information and kind of see who's interested, and then that could help further your guys' decision making, at least for the current owners who's interested, and see maybe there's something that kind of works in an area, or maybe there's not. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree on that comment, Josette, and I think we're going to be able to find out quite a bit of information through a survey. Take Arnie, for example. He's on his whole storefront. He's got that shed roof, and there's no way you could put a tree in front of his business. You don't have the room. But I think with a general consensus survey, you could find out who would like them and who won't. And I think there is a way to balance out, you know, we don't have to put it as many as we had in the past. just in the areas that would be appropriate. You know, like JR said, you got 15 feet from the stop sign or stoplight, recessed back, and so you're kind of limited a little bit. So. Counselor Webb.
Yeah, I think definitely have to include the business owners downtown. That's a big part of it. Uh, I'm not even clear who actually owns that property that we'd be putting trees on. Um, it's kind of interesting that we could force a tree on somebody else's property. We could end up in pretty good legal battle there if we weren't careful. We probably got away with it in the past, just for, oh, we're doing you a favor. But some of them now probably aren't going to buy that argument. I'd kind of like to see, I don't know how spendy this would be or if it's within staff's ability, kind of just some concept drawings, concept, uh, you know, views. Some with the deciduous trees, some with evergreen trees and different placements, um, and passing that by with the business owners. And then again, I think when we have business owners that are strongly against, uh, we have to take that into consideration. What does the overall view going to look like if we don't have them buying in? Um, it could actually end up being kind of distracting. Looking, one part of the street looks pretty nice, and then all of a sudden, it's to a different look. One side is one way, the other side's the other. Um, would think you would want somewhat of a uniform look, but maybe having those concept drawings would, you know, different drawings of, like I say, maybe just the trees on the ends of the blocks, set back so they're not obstructing, but yet they're not causing obstruction to parking. Um, that would be one view. And anyhow, we could have different layouts and have them kind of, which one do you like, and it's kind of like that. Some of the meetings where you get a sticker and you put a sticker on the map that you like the most, some concept like that. So, just some thoughts.
Counselor Allen, you were next. I'll get to you, Counselor Webb.
Yeah, I like that idea too. There's also like a decorative potted, maybe evergreen shrub. I've seen some neat ones that kind of swirl and stuff and come up, and they're only about 6 feet high. And maybe they have a little flowers in the summer or something. There's up there on at the top of Long Beach up there at Oysterville in the old part of town, they had those. And I wish I had a picture to show you, but it's on another phone. But next time I go up, I'll get them. And then, we could do a lot with just cleaning things up and some new garbage cans too. And then I also like the idea, and I think Stephanie does too. I was up in the San Juans this summer, and that whole little town is just like Vernonia, except for it's awesome as far as except for flowers and stuff. And I'm going to show you the flowers. They're on every single light pole in Main Street and some of the side streets close to town and the marina. And the marina, they double them up, and they have drip waters that come up just like our light poles. And they're really, oops.
Ice cream.
Yeah, sorry, I screwed that one up.
Well, we had those in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And these all have the drip tubes where no one's going to have to go water them at US Pelster. I mean, they're automatic. And of course, I don't know what the expense is each year to have to replace those or whatever, but it sure makes the town, I'm telling you. So I'm open to all ideas. I hope everybody keeps bringing ideas, because I think that's the way we get to something that works for everybody the best. I'm definitely not trying to force the trees, but the 2 foot back is that argument is a little light with me when we've let Ernie had his post there on the curb for 30, 40 years. So it is what it is. We got a 10-foot sidewalk. We need to figure out something to beautify our town. I think we're all agreement on that. So I don't really have a whole lot more to say tonight. So, but thanks for listening.
Thank you, JR. Counselor Williams.
I'm sure you guys are all familiar with what the term trees are planted in an Indian row, which just means a bunch of the same kind of tree, all in a perfectly straight line. I like to look at our downtown area as every single business and storefront is a unique, just like every house. You drive down a residential street, every house is different. The trees are different, the roses are different, the bushes are different. And I think if we allow our citizens to decorate with shrubbery or flowers or whatever the way they choose to enhance their own business, I think we can beautify our city and they'll be happy. So if we take that survey, I would include in there questions like, you like hanging baskets? Do you like evergreens that are sculptured? I had one person tell me they'd like to see us invite artists who make bronze statues to come and display their statues in our town because it draws people in. It draws people who are artistic. I know Danny Brown would like that. People buy them. It doesn't cost anything to put that sculpture there when it sells it. I don't know. Maybe we even get a little commission because they're using our street as a sales room. So I mean, there's all kinds of ways we can make it beautiful and not have it all look like Indian Row. If you know what I mean by Indian Row.
Good point about the artwork, Grant. I'm glad you brought that up. I did try to get some information from Lake Oswego. Unfortunately, I didn't get a reply back from them at this point. But they have some pretty big art sculptures and stuff, and they kind of have concrete to mount them to and stuff. So
Yeah.
there is some pictures online. You guys can look at it, but maybe a smaller downscale, a piece or two. We've got areas in town that don't have to be exactly downtown. We've got a half a town with not much, along Spencer Park or something. So it would be kind of nice to have a couple of pieces of artwork around on a. I think typically the artists just put them there until they sell and then they replace them with another one. I don't think the city really makes nothing on it, but.
Do you guys know about the Laguna Greeter? Have you ever been down to Southern California on the coast there? Well, there's this old guy that used to stand out there. He had long hair and a beard, and he wore a hat and he wore a suit, and he just stood out there and waved for like 40 years. And then when he died, they made a big bronze statue of him. And I'm thinking that Mike Peel deal down there at the museum. If we had a big statue of a logger with a chainsaw over his shoulder, I mean, we want people to come and see pretty stuff and neat stuff in a sculpture standing by a 10-foot logger with a great big chainsaw on his shoulder. Man, that people drive a couple hundred miles to get their picture by that guy.
Yeah, we stop in Sandpoint, Idaho, and sit in the giant chair and take pictures there. It's like a
Kind of
huge
not
giant
very
red
far.
chair. Yeah. So Grant wants a tourist attraction. We'll see if Mike Peel's available to wave to the people.
I think he already does.
Go ahead, Josette.
So JR, I did contact that woman that you had sent the email to, and I meant to send you out some information on that. So it's actually a nonprofit that is funded through the city's budget to do the sponsorship, and there's artists that submit what they want their sculpture to be, and then there's that nonprofit juries those to pick which ones will be placed in the, and it's a 2-year commitment. They have to place the statue there for 2 years. So I'll send you guys out kind of that background information since we're kind of starting to talk about that. But she did send me a link to a brochure. So the city doesn't do it. It's this art commission under the city's kind of umbrella. But I did get a response back from her. I just called, I found who she was and called the number and said, our council's looking at different options, and she did send me something, so I'll send it out to you guys.
Great.
Okay.
So maybe what I'm hearing from you guys is staff needs to come up with a draft survey and bring it to you guys to add, change, amend, delete what you really want to ask, kind of. And what I'm hearing is, would you be okay with something going back in the planter strip? Do you like evergreens? Would you like hanging baskets? Would you like a tree that's appropriately sized? Would you like nothing? Kind of, those are what we're going around. Also, I'm hearing from Councilor Webb that he wants staff to determine the ownership of the planter strip, and does that have any pitfalls if say someone doesn't want it and we were going to put something there, kind of get a little more legal clarification on that. I'm going to send you the Lake Oswego stuff. I don't know. I'm a little worried about doing a conceptual drawing until we know kind of how many people would be interested. Because then it's a little easier. If they're interested in something coming in, then we maybe know to include them in a conceptual drawing instead of doing some blanket thing that Arnie is never going to want anything, right? Because he doesn't have space. But maybe we do that after we get you this information. I don't know.
That would probably work pretty good, Josette. Could you put together a survey for our next meeting? And
Yeah,
then,
for the 15th?
yeah, and then we could look at it and decide on it at that time. And then we could go ahead and enact that survey, and then we could set up another workshop to review that. Would that sound like a plan?
Yeah, because then once we kind of give a deadline of return, and if they don't, maybe we go visit them and just fill it out by asking them the questions if they don't get it back to us. Or we could go out. Stephanie and I last time just went door to door and talked to the different people, so we could do the door to door. It works great to just talk to people in person too.
Okay.
We could mail it or do a door to door visit, whatever you guys want.
What would the council like?
Well, let's look at the version, and then you can decide at your meeting when you adopt the survey or whatever.
Okay.
I pretty much went door to door already, so I didn't, necessarily talk to every building owner. I think most of them were the owners. So probably, I think I'd really like Dale's idea. And it doesn't have to be a lot. I know you're probably worried about it's a lot of work, but it doesn't have to be a lot of work as far as a whole conceptual drawing. It could just be samples of, here's a tree in a planter, here's a little one in a container, here's some benches, here's some flowers, and they could be just separate pictures. Give them choices, maybe what they would really like to for the town. It doesn't have to be a full-blown architectural thing of showing the street view and everything. I think it'd be pretty easy to put together. One of a small evergreen maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, I'm game for giving them options. I was thinking Dale was talking about a street view, like an overarching concept, right? Or am I wrong? I don't know.
Go ahead, Councilor Webb.
Yeah, maybe just a Photoshop. Somebody's good at Photoshopping and just take a picture, down the street and then Photoshop in the deciduous trees. And then do one with the conifers, do one with trees all the way down the block, the different scenarios. And then let them kind of put their sticker on the one that they like the best.
The only thing I can Photoshop is Bernie Sanders sitting in the middle of 47. I've been able to do.
Okay, so we're going to bring you a draft survey, some options, and then try our hand at Photoshopping, and you guys determine what you want to go to the businesses with.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Councilor Williams.
You know, I think what's being proposed will give our business owners a lot of ideas. Some of them might not really even have a clue how they could make their place better. For instance, like if you've got a bench and you've got a round planter with flowers on either side of it, that might be perfectly appropriate for some businesses, but there's other businesses where they've got, you know, that would work if you have big windows where they want you to look in at the merchandise. But if it's like a restaurant or something like that, every situation is going to be a different application. So if we plant the seeds that these are the options, and let the people make up the mind how they want to beautify their place. And we can help facilitate those who want trees. We can help them. You know, I mean, we'll do everything we can to help them.
Stephanie.
So JR, is this what you were kind of talking about right here? Do you see it? Oh no, right here. I apologize. The spiral trees.
Kind of. I've seen them a little bigger than that, but yeah, there's different shapes and things. So that's one idea. That's kind of small. So,
Yeah,
um,
this is freshly planted, I think. They get tall.
right. I mean, you'll find a million different shapes and sizes, but that's like an evergreen spiral thing, kind of decorative, you know. So,
They
uh,
take constant pruning to keep them like that.
Oh
They
boy.
don't just stay
right,
like that naturally. You got to work them.
right. So that's something to think about too. Is halfway ease of care. The flowers, obviously, that's a commitment to watering, and I don't know, you probably have to replace them every year. So it'd be a good idea to have an idea of what it would cost, some of this stuff. I don't know. We're buying those big trees at Spencer Park for whatever they are, $250. So that's another option, just like the council last said, that business owners could pay to put another one in. I bet you'd find a lot of people that want to pony up some money, but um, we don't want two trees probably, or five trees on one side and one on the other. So trying to find the balance there, that's the hard part we're all up against too. So um, maybe we'll find an option that most people are pretty happy with. But I think just the cleanup too will make big difference. And maybe if we don't put trees in the ground, maybe we pull them pavers, but that's our access to certain utilities in certain places. So
Yeah, we need it.
you could almost pour concrete and stamp it and make it look like brick and not have to deal with the weeds and all the junk, but then you're cutting that back up. So, um, I don't, it's just going to take some maintenance, I think, one way or another.
I can't see those. I have a picture of weeping white spruce trees, and those are the trees I was describing. They get about 12 to 15 feet tall, and they're not very wide. They grow straight up, and they're really pretty. Gail.
Yeah, to back up JR's comment there on access to utilities, I know when the wife and I were walking around on the sidewalks and looking things over, and she had the same comment. Why don't we just take the bricks out and concrete that all in one big sidewalk? Man, the access into those utilities would become a nightmare doing that, though. Down there by the Brunsman building, they had a problem, and they pulled out all the pavers and dug down to the water meter and did their thing, and then you go back, you can hardly tell they've been there. That really kept the costs low, but the maintenance on those pavers, though, is kind of a nightmare. That moss, we need to do some research there, how we keep stuff down, the moss and the grass. I don't know if salt would work in there. I use salt on my driveway and it kills the weeds pretty good. But
Well, my experience with, I've laid lots of pavers when I was in construction. And actually, you set those pavers in a dry pack cement with sand and cement, and you pound them in a dry pack, then you grout around them. And they're a little bit, I mean, you'd have to dig them up if you ever had to get, but they stay there. And then all you have to do is pressure wash them. Go ahead, Josette.
Well, so there is a polymetric paver sand that sets like a concrete, and it's what you put in for weeds to keep weeds out. You really have to spray all the lines, right? Get yourself the vacancy in between them, and then brush that stuff in, and then you spritz it with the water, and as it hardens in the cracks. So that's something we could look into too. I mean, maybe it's a block at a time or whatever we can come up with doing, and reset the ones that need to do the blocks that are all flush with that sand application, and then reset the faltering ones and then do that sand application. So you could do something like that would keep the weeds, especially because you have such tight joints. It's not like a patio where the pavers are expanding with the ground moving under it. You're pinched in there into that 3 feet. So the joints are not going to get bigger. So that kind of application potentially could work really well.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other point too. I mean, our wish list here could be huge. We just don't have the resources. And maybe a better discussion for, especially coming into budget, is uh, something in the budget every year. The money's going yearly, going towards downtown beautification, um, maybe a more disciplined over time approach to get there. Because I know we can spend it. I mean, there's a lot of work. I mean, just resetting those pavers. Josette's probably got an idea what it costs us to do that. We just did it a year or two ago. Um, so, you know, I'd caution, there's not a lot of extra money in the budgets. And then with our priority list, downtown isn't always our top priority also of things to get done. I'm sure there's a lot of residents, if you surveyed them, you want your downtown to look nicer or you want a paved street in front of your house. I know the people on those bad streets, I know what their answer are going to be. People with brand new streets may not view it the same way, but uh, we got to be fair. Everybody deserves to have a good street in this town. It's kind of trying to catch ourselves up. The town's kind of got away from us here, and we're trying. It's going to take time. We just can't get there overnight. And I know that's frustrating. It's frustrating for me. But when you can come up with a structured plan, and like our street plan, we can see the end of the tunnel there. We can see the daylight. That if things keep going the way they are, we're eventually going to get there. At least we've fooled ourselves to think that.
Go ahead, Josette.
One other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is, say we don't get a lot of takers on trees, and we're talking about decorating for different holidays and stuff. So the city's the one that purchases the seasonal banners, and Public Works puts up those seasonal banners, and we're slowly learning. So I don't know how many of you have paid attention, but some of the light poles have like an animal, and it's in memorial to someone. So it's like a bear and a beehive or a coyote. So some of them have that. Some of them have a set of banner spikes. We have certain delivery trucks that have repeatedly hit those banner spikes over time. So we've removed banners from where it would look symmetrical going down. Cedar Side's one of those. The beverage truck takes it out every time we put it there. But when we did take out the trees, we paid $6,000 to do light poles that didn't have a banner or an animal. So these ones have power. The pink, I'm trying to point and look backwards at myself like a mirror. The pink ones have power. Then you have ones with banners and you have ones with animals. So that could be one thing is if people don't go the tree route, outfitting more of the banner or animal ones with plug-in for holiday decorating, if that's something that's important, because we couldn't do them all. We started with the ones that either didn't have an animal or didn't have a banner, and I think there's 14 or 16 of the total street lights. 1, 2, 3. So yeah, there's 13, and then there's some that were weird position and didn't get it. But we tried to do, and they used them one year. They used them in 2018. But it was hard because Stephanie and I were looking at different LED kind of, like you see in Forest Grove where they have like the scroll with a bell and lights in it. There's kind of new age versions of those that are all made with LED. So we could, work towards putting more electrification too in the long term. Because it wasn't every tree that had it, but it was kind of a pattern. So you could mimic that pattern in the street, like if people went with shrubs or something that isn't a decorated, lighted area. Just wanted to have you keep that in mind too. Talking about different versions of how we could spruce it up. I also think a huge part of it needs to be the education of the business owner. Either kind of a letter with code that says, hey, council's discussing different downtown beautification projects. We're working on garbage cans for the city garbage cans. Your response, like a little FYI, this is your responsibility. There's some of them that you don't even have to worry about. Gray Dawn, you never have to worry that there's going to be weeds and any garbage. And then there's some of them that they don't even look out their front door. They're so busy just trying to make their business succeed. So I get it. I mean, I get the plight of the business owner to keep it going and not have extra energy for the front, but it really does draw or turn people away, however your business looks.
Yeah, we got some benches down there that are a little susceptible too. I don't know what the deal is. There's like plywood with old stools, and then there's some old, nothing seems to match. And there's like makeshift stuff here and there. So I think once hopefully we start cleaning things up one way or another, that we can tell them there's a new push to do a little beautification in this town, and this is what it's going to have to. You're going to have to clean this up and get rid of this, and in a nice way. I think if they see an effort from the city and an effort from their neighbors, it's contagious, right?
Well, and Councilor Webb's father-in-law has systematically refinished all the city-owned benches that are the old growth, they're like a solid block of wood, and they're on kind of like a ski leg. So Claude, I think he just finished the last two that Public Works was going to pick up just as a volunteer project to make those all refinished and nice. And so if you have nice city benches and you work on the pavers in front of the city-owned areas, and then maybe do something with garbage cans, that'll kind of maybe start the ball rolling. If you always decorate or keep your lawn mowed if your neighbor's got his lawn mowed, because you don't want to look like the scrappy town house, but maybe we could just start the ball rolling that way. Keep the front of VCLC clean because that's city-owned, stuff like that.
Is there a city? I know some people aren't big on chemicals. So is there a city approved, non-toxic, pet safe spray that we can all get together with and say, here's what we're using, and give the information or give them the product for the first year or something to kill all that. I mean, they'll say the city put that in, why should I have to spend money on it, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
what I'm looking,
So
what I'm
if we're
looking for is a safe product that'll kill that moss that we can pressure wash it 6 months later or 3 months later.
Yeah, so if we're looking at something that's not toxic, that won't harm like a pet or a kid or anyone won't absorb it, we're probably going like the vinegar, Epsom salt, Dawn dish soap way, which is what I use to kill my weeds, and it kills them dead instantly on the curb line. You put it in a pump sprayer, dissolve the Epsom salts, right, so they're not crystals. You put Dawn in there as the surfactant that helps it stick to the leaves or whatever, and it'll kill that stuff pretty quick.
And I
Without
would
it being
volunteer to
Roundup.
do it. I'd volunteer to do it if I had Counselor Webb's time on my hands.
Maybe a green team project.
Well, yeah, put it
Oh,
on.
Oh,
I think we
green
need
team
about
out there
six.
with their pump sprayers.
I'll bring a pressure washer from work with 100 feet of hose. So let me know when we can start blasting because it needs to be done.
Yeah, so
Well,
there's, I
and I
mean, and
kind of
if,
mirror JR's sentiments on that too. I've done some experiments in the past sweeping sidewalks up here around my area. Had mixed results, but I did have some people that then came in behind me and they started making some effort of their own. And it's not 100%, but it's better than what it was. So yeah, maybe kind of a campaign by the city, and we're putting some money to try to beautify our downtown and trying to facilitate. Maybe they buy the hanging baskets, but we got to get that drip system working right down there in the poles and the hangers and provide the support. But we go down there and take a city block and knock it out and make it look spiffy, and the others will go, oh, maybe we need that too. So I don't know. You aren't going to get there if you don't try.
Yeah, you start
Any
with
other
one that
comments?
doesn't look that bad right now and make it prettier.
Yeah.
Start with one that's kind of okay now and make it so gorgeous that everybody's jealous.
Yeah.
I'm
we
afraid the
could start with
facade.
the city. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Josette.
I was just thinking we could start with the city properties, right? So City Hall from what's his name? Why is his name jumping out of my head? From the mechanic shop.
R&R. Yeah.
Yeah, all the way, and just really clean make sure the pavers have no moss, make sure the garbage cans, put a new garbage can there, new stickers on the payment box, clean the shrubs up, do all that, because we just painted this building, so it's pretty nice as far as the front goes.
A question on the garbage cans, Josette. Do we have to make them or can you just purchase them like other cities do that maybe could be cheaper?
So I first looked for a shell that would fit some version of their rolling cart, and there just really isn't one out there that other people are using that doesn't have a round can in it. So you can get the
Oh,
metal ones for like 700, right? And they're like a cylinder and the round can goes in it and has the hole in the top and maybe a little lid, more industrial, little bit looking. But there's none that fit a square rolling cart of that height. So it has
Yeah,
to
they're
fit
pretty big.
something, even it could be their smallest one, but it's got to fit something they can roll to the street and get in the arm to go up.
so Carlton, Banks, Clatskanie, St. Helens, they all use round? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they must not have it in their franchise agreement. The garbage company probably doesn't pick up their downtown cans. I can check with them, but I think that's kind of a one-off that Vernonia got when they did that franchise agreement.
Hmm.
When it switched from Prohaska to some sort of waste management or a subsidiary, the powers that be at the time wrote that in to our franchise agreement that they would pick those up every week.
So
in addition to all our other dumpsters that the city owns.
a question about the grant. When do we find out that? And since when does Rachel put grants in for the city?
Well, so the grant actually that she's putting in was for murals on a few different business buildings in the downtown. So it was like an arts and culture grant, and she was prodded to add to her grant request by Columbia County Economic Team, who's helping her kind of write it. And so she knew we had designed the new garbage can, and she said, "Can you send me the plans? I'm going to put the garbage cans in that's asked because they're asking her to beef it up." So she doesn't write grants for the city. It really started as a mural grant, and she asked Rick to write her a letter supporting her mural project. So Rick did that, and then she just at the last minute asked us to send the plans to include the garbage can.
Okay, great. When do we find out?
Well, so the first one she put in for, there was too tight of competition. It's in for a second, that same package they submitted to a second grant. They haven't heard back on that one. But the first one, go ahead.
Oh, I just say, will we know by budget?
Hopefully, I can check with the CCET, Columbia County Economic Team, and see when the award date's supposed to come. Tomorrow I could ask them.
Reason I'm saying, I think we need to all, as a group, figure out how to move that forward one way or another. Probably those cans aren't going to stand much longer. And
Yeah, and it's really, the design's pretty streamlined because basically Alan Hine built those original ones like 22 years ago. And they're really kind of slick design. They're basically 2x2 boxes attached to other 2x2 boxes. So the wood material is just 2x2. And so it's like a square box, 4 square box make the container unit, 2 boxes make the base. So if we just built a jig, it'd be nothing to kind of turn those out pretty quickly if you had the material. And then we talked about reusing the metal work that's on them because it's like different forest and fish and different, pulling that off, refreshing it, respraying it with the hammered, so it has a nice, good coat of paint that looks hammered on it, and then reattaching those kind of that decor because it seemed to work well and fit the theme of town.
I remember when they were new, they were really nice. It's just unfortunate I don't know if anybody's taking care of them as far as green moss and whatnot, but.
Well, I think once Pride left, a lot of that downtown beautification, once kind of the Vernonia Pride ladies disbanded and none of the younger women picked it up, it was kind of a downfall for downtown.
Councilor Webb, you had a question or a comment?
Just scratching my head, but yeah, I agree with Josette. When Pride left, they used to spend a lot of effort on downtown beautification, promoting that. And I think all those metal sculptures, I think they were the ones that procured those, and all the elk ones, I think people tried to steal. So
Of course.
yeah, I think we finally got vandal-proof screws to put them on, but I think we lost some over the years. So I didn't end up with one.
I always try to look at the glass half full, and I like to make some observations of as of lately. I think with the addition of a full-time parks maintenance man and with Tim McLeod, he's really added a lot of really helped our parks. Shea Park, Hawkins Park, Spencer Park. He's done a great job in that new gray house on the corner that's being almost completed. Every time I drive by there, I go, wow, that is beautiful. And the way they built that fence around it and the solar lights and it just looks, I'm proud to be a part of that, to be a part of Vernonia. And when people see that, I think it's a snowball effect. And you know what we've done in the last year with the repainting of the Learning Center and the new canopies and the City Hall and the library repainted. And then the store owner with the antique shops, they've upgraded that building. And I think there's a lot of positive things going on with Vernonia. So we've all been in a lockdown in our small businesses in the last year from now, almost the year, and they seem to, or they're going to survive just barely, you know, some of them. And with the summer coming on, everyone getting vaccinated and the opening up of the CZ Trail, I think we're going to see a lot of tourism here in the next couple of years in Vernonia. And we're on our way to really making a nice community. And I think with a little effort in getting the business owners involved and to help clean up their areas and the sidewalks. Actually, I was kind of, I didn't know what to expect with this workshop. You know, we came into it just talking about downtown trees, and some were in favor, some were against it. And by golly, I think within 2 hours, we came to a whole different spectrum of our city. And we seem to all agree that we've got something really nice here and we can make it better. And I think we have a plan to go ahead, and I'm really proud of you guys. And with all your input, and I think we're on our way to making our community that much better with everyone's involvement. So I'm done with my sermons.
Right. You know, I agree. I agree with what Rick said. I think I didn't come into this saying we had to I might have pissed off someone the other day, but the thing was we got a conversation going about it. And I think from staff's perspective, they've made some huge improvements in this town that a lot of people don't see because it's not sexy down at the sewer pond. And maybe they didn't even know the senior center hadn't been there for 20 years when they come into town, but they do stop and they do see our downtown. And if everybody walks it like I think most of you have, and I know it is a bad part of time of year, we got gravel, the curbs aren't painted, and nobody's pressure washed yet and stuff. So I don't mean to be it's all doom and gloom, but it's that time of year we're all kind of like winter blues, and our town looks that way. And I think it'd be just another feather in the cap for staff to say we really made a difference here in our tenure. You know, look what we've changed downtown as well, and it doesn't have to cost $1 million. Part of that I think is education and trying to encourage our business owners. And if we're going to take their barrels away, we got to offer an alternative, right? So something that maybe doesn't take up as much room. So anyway, it was a good point you made, Rick. I appreciate it. And everybody else too. And it's 8 o'clock.
It's 8 o'clock.
Okay, so do you want me to go over what staff's going to work on?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to develop a survey draft for the March 15th meeting. We're also going to have with that some pictures of different options that you guys have discussed, the more column-shaped maple type tree, evergreen, maybe a planter, different things like that for options to go along with the survey. We're going to work to determine ownership or precedents that's set with that planter strip property. I'm going to send you the Lake Oswego links on the art installations and how that worked for them. And that's what I got.
Good job.
Okay.
And we're going to figure out, the date for Rachel's next grant, when that would be awarded or not.
Could you look into something you can buy off the shelf to kill the weeds and moss that's not a home brew mix?
Okay.
I know there's some green products out there. I just don't know how expensive they are.
Okay.
Or I could help look too. I mean, if I get time, I'd be happy to look.
I could
Okay.
experiment.
I'm telling you, white vinegar is cheap as heck, and so is Epsom salt, and it will kill it dead.
And
All
Dawn's-
right.
Yeah.
You don't want to get that on your grass or it dies too.
Webb just volunteered to spray downtown. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, there
Webb.
it is.
Just don't put too
Good
much
night.
Epsom salt on your concrete and you won't have a slab anymore. Not that I did that.
Say that again, Steph.
I said just don't put too much Epsom salt on your concrete slab or you won't have a slab anymore.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
salt
Me how
hard
I
on.
know.
Soda lead it right away. Okay, well, thank you everyone for your contributions tonight, and we had a good workshop, I think, and so thank you for all participating, and I will adjourn this workshop at 8 o'clock. Meeting adjourned. Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Right.